Powered by the Montana Television Network. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us midweek. I'm Jeanelle Slade.
And I'm Russ Riesinger. After decades of sexual abuse against Custer County high school boys, the Miles City School District has reached a settlement with 32 victims who came forward.
School district leaders now say they are outraged at Jim Jensen's actions and his conduct was horrific. They also say this settlement will be paid with the district's insurance and not fall on taxpayers' shoulders.
This massive sexual abuse lawsuit that has spanned the course of a year has ended with a $9 million settlement.
Q2's Andrea Lutz has been covering this case from the very beginning and tonight breaks down the end. These men, all now grown adults, are finally gaining justice for what they endured at the hands of James Jensen while they were just teenagers participating in high school sports. This massive case started just last fall when a group of friends came forward about the abuse, seeking legal justice.
A lot has happened in a year, and you think about this all started with a pedophile living across the street from a middle school in Miles City, just kind of, getting away with it, sending friend requests to his victims on Facebook.
Some of them already spoke about the abuse to law enforcement officials, but they were told that the current Montana state law wouldn't allow for the prosecution of Jensen due to the statute of limitations. So they sought out to change that law during this last legislative session. Attorneys for the plaintiffs likening this whole ordeal to a Stephen King movie as a group of tormented children decided to confront a monster and win.
It shows in this case, and I think it sends a message, to sex abuse victims across Montana and frankly across the country, that there is strength in numbers, that it's important to come forward, that they didn't do anything wrong.
The civil case sparked a federal investigation into Jensen, and now he will carry out the end of his life in prison. Jensen, of course, worked for the district for decades. In the 1970s, as an athletic trainer, he conducted his abuse under the guise of the program, using massages and inappropriate touch on his victims. He told the boys it would improve their athletic ability. The 32 survivors in this case now can finally start to put their abuse, at least to a legal rest. The district even changing up the way they do things too. In a statement, the district said they deeply regret the pain and injuries the plaintiffs endured under Jensen's care. And the district is adopting and will continue to adopt new policies and procedures regarding prevention and the reporting of sexual abuse and harassment.
All right, thank you, Andrea.
In August, Jensen was sentenced to 20 years in the state prison for charges involving child pornography.
Now, Jensen must first serve out his federal prison sentence before serving time in the Montana State Prison.
In other news, this round of cold, icy weather is now to blame for the death of a man. Shortly after 9 a.m., the driver was heading east on I-90 just west of Big Timber. Montana Highway Patrol says the man lost control of his SUV and went into the median. The vehicle rolled. The driver, not wearing a seatbelt, was ejected. Now, accidents also littered the highway in the areas of Columbus and Reed Point, even shutting down the interstate this morning. A number of vehicles slid off the road or even rolled due to the black ice.
All right, turning to the weather now, Bob. Those slick streets might still be a concern in the morning. Fortunately, we're not dealing with any more snow, though.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's no more precipitation to be put on those roads. So if it's wet someplace, the temperatures are cold enough now, it's going to make it kind of icy. You can see here there is Doppler radar and satellite temperature shows the whole system has moved out of the region. It's kind of took a piggyback ride on the jet stream and it just kind of whisked it out of the area. But we still have a lot of cold air across most of eastern Montana tonight. And so we had a lot of snow, too. This is some of our snowfall amounts. Look at that near Ekalaka, 3.8 inches. Roundup had 3.5. Forsyth, 3 inches. 2.3 near Broadus. Colstrip had 2 inches of snow out of that. And as you'll see, temperatures tonight continue to remain very chilly tonight, obviously below freezing. They'll stay that way right up until about maybe 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon when we pop up to about 41 degrees. Then after that, look what's happening. The reason we're warming up so much, that red thing, that is a new warm front moving into the region. It'll be here tomorrow and start to warm things up for us. We'll have more about that in a few more minutes.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Well, a new report by state health officials reveals multiple escapes by children being treated at Helena's Chaudere Hospital. Now, that data compiled after a 15-year-old girl broke out of the hospital in July and was struck and killed when she ran onto Interstate 15.
Well, Mike Dennison obtained the report for MTN Investigates. Tonight, he talks with Chaudere officials and others about the lapses identified in that document and what the hospital's doing to try and correct them.
Chaudère is a 74-bed private nonprofit hospital that provides residential psychiatric care for children. Last year, it treated 1,800 kids from ages 3 to 18. Yet the hospital was shaken to its core this July when 15-year-old Kaylin Neal of Missoula broke out of the facility, ran onto nearby Interstate 15, and was hit by a vehicle and killed, in full view of some hospital staffers.
I think with the families, it's been very traumatic, especially with the parents of the daughter. It's affected a lot of employees. There were several employees who watched the entire incident from start to finish, and we have lost some employees over this just because of the trauma of it.
Within days, reviewers from the State Health Department's Quality Assurance Division interviewed hospital staff and then filed a 46-page report and follow-up. The report, obtained by MTN Investigates and publicly posted last month, revealed that Neal was not the only child to escape from Chaudère this summer. In fact, she was one of 3 girls who fled the grounds that day after they broke a fire alarm that unlocked outer doors. The 2 other girls had escaped the day before as well, and 4 additional kids had escaped or attempted to escape the previous month, including another girl who ran across the interstate and was later returned to the hospital unharmed. At the time of the incident, there wasn't even a fence blocking the interstate. The state agreed to install this one behind me, but OSFED says the hospital is doing a lot more to address the problem. The report said Chaudère fell short on several fronts related to the escapes. It said the hospital failed to establish a process for staff to follow if a patient escaped and did not train staff on that procedure. And perhaps most importantly, it said the hospital did not conduct what's called a root cause analysis of earlier escapes, including one that happened a year ago.
This is a very troubling report. Very good psychiatric facilities do root cause analyses when kids elope from their facility and when other serious events occur. This is a problem that they knew they had, but unfortunately did not analyze because they didn't conduct the root cause analyses that they needed to conduct.
Brenneman's group monitors facilities that treat people with disabilities. OSFED says in the wake of the report, the hospital made immediate changes and filed a plan of correction in August. Fire alarms have been relocated inside secure nurses' stations, staff are trained how to handle elopements, and the hospital conducts elopement drills. Since the July death, no patients have eloped.
There were things we weren't doing right. And I think this pointed it out, is that we're not a perfect organization. And it really forced us to go back and look at our own procedures. And I think we knew we needed to look at that. And I think this report also made the same conclusion.
Brenneman notes the hospital is still close to a busy street and the interstate and wonders if additional security or safety steps are needed. Chaudère says it's not a correctional facility and doesn't want fences around the building, but it is exploring steps to slow area traffic. And state regulators, as well as Brenneman's group, will be watching. So is Chaudère doing enough to prevent future elopements? They hope so, and that's the question that the state and other regulators will address when they revisit the hospital's response. Reporting from Helena, Mike Dennison, MTN News.
Thanks, Mike. Now, state health regulators will conduct unannounced visits at Chaudère in the future, just as they do at any other hospital, as part of regular reviews.
Well, a new proposal from President Trump and the Environmental Protection Agency could save coal companies millions of dollars a year.
But environmental groups warn it's the public's health that will bear the cost. The proposal would roll back regulations that dictate how coal plants treat coal ash. Now, that's the residue left over from burning coal, residue that contains heavy metals such as arsenic, lead, and mercury. At Colstrip, the coal ash is located in a complex of 9 ponds adjacent to the power plants. Those ponds have been leaking an estimated 200 million gallons of contaminated water per year for the past 30 years.
Now, outlining the proposed changes this week, EPA Administrator Andrew Wheeler says the new regulations could save the coal industry as much as $175 million annually. The rules, he says, will also give companies more flexibility to utilize new technology that can remove more of the harmful materials. But environmental groups call that hogwash. They say the new rules will only allow utilities to pollute longer, prolonging the risk to public health.
What's happening at Colstrip is very indicative of the problem across the system. You have an unregulated waste that is contaminating water bodies and harming people and harming wildlife. And that the administration had places like Colstrip in mind when they made their rules. And it is a travesty for them to now go back on that and say, never mind. That's a slap in the face to everybody who relies on clean water downstream of these ash ponds.
Northwestern Energy is one of the 6 utility co-owners. Public relations specialist Jody Black tells Q2, quote, "We don't see the changes in the CCR rules having much effect at the Colstrip plant." Now, she explained that's because the state of Montana regulations apply to Colstrip, and as part of a 2016 lawsuit settlement, efforts are underway to comply with those regulations. As for proposed changes in wastewater regulations, Black points out the Colstrip plant was designed and built as a closed-loop, non-discharge facility.
Intel Montana, which operates the Colstrip plants on behalf of the other co-owners, tells Q2 it's still evaluating the rule proposals, but it agrees with Northwestern Energy that it does not believe that the rules will affect Colstrip.
The EPA's new proposal is the latest in a series of moves from the Trump administration to try and help the country's ailing coal industry.
But MEIC and other environmental groups vow to renew their battle in court.
Well, after last night's municipal election, the Billings City Council will see 4 new members take their seats next year. This as Billings stares down the barrel of a $2 million shortfall in its public safety and general funds. The options to shrink the 2020 shortfall are endless, but so are the questions behind getting it done. City staff say the issue is that the cost to operate the city, including the fire and police departments, has outpaced the money coming in. Now, this growth creating a funding gap that is not sustainable. Q2 caught up with 2 of the 4 new council members to get their thoughts.
We need to do a better job of informing the public how things actually work, where the money actually really comes from, what parts of the budget can be used for, to help put more police officers on the street.
Well, I mean, it's ultimately up to the taxpayers whether they're going to raise taxes or not. The job of the council is to present what's going to happen, whether they do or not, in a logical, simple, understandable method.
Now, the public safety discussion will stay at the forefront, and so far council members have discussed bringing a mill levy to the voters in 2020.
Passion, hard work, helping people, just some of the good words from 3 people inducted into the Montana Business Hall of Fame. MSU Billings Hall honored successful business leaders in Montana at the annual banquet tonight. The group includes Marilyn Bartlett, a CPA who worked with the Montana Department of Administration, George Solover, car dealer owner and philanthropist in Billings, and Larry Simpkins, president and CEO of the Washington Companies in Missoula. Those in the hall can be good inspiration for business students.
They're all legends in their own right. They're super people. They've done a lot for the community. She went back to school later in life, had an excellent career, philanthropist, very caring and passionate man, and his family's carrying on the tradition. His donation and what he did with the foundation for our science building put us over the $5 million. They put others before themselves. They lead by example, they're hard workers, and they're all ethical people. I'm really impressed by that, and I hope our students can see that, and I hope they carry on to the tradition.
Well, the banquet is also a fundraiser for scholarships for MSUB students.
Coming up on tonight's Q2 10 o'clock news, we'll check out how the uses for hemp are growing as fast as its industry.
And in sports, 1 yard at a time doesn't begin to describe the road this guy's been on just to play high school football. Scott will share his story.
You're watching MTN News with Jeanelle Slade and Russ Riesinger. Storm Tracker weather with Bob McGuire. And sports with Scott Breen. This is the 10 o'clock news on Q2, Montana's news leader.